Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining. This is the day 5 for the 2-week online Oracle integration session. And yes, we will start from the recapping the previous topics, whatever we have covered. So in previous session, we covered assign. With the help of assign, we are able to create the variables in Oracle integration. And with the help of assign only, we are going to assign the variables to that specific variable. Now we created integration. That integration having the request payload, response payload, even integration without request and response payload. So all these things we created in the previous session only. So now in this session, we are going to learn about integration versions, why we have to create versions and what kind of different versions available for the Oracle integrations, and how we can create clone of the integration, what's the use of that cloning the integration. And yes, we used logger, and we will see that what's the differences between logger and note and why we are going to use note. And in last, we will cover about the notification. So with the help of notification only, we will be able to send email over not email from the Oracle integration only. So that email can be the containing the data file or the status of the integration and the basic details whatever we have to use based on the requirement. So we will use that notification to send over the email. And yes, we will learn about the switch statement. So whenever we require to add condition in Oracle integration, how we can add the logical part there, yes, we will learn. Then we will move to the while loop part, that sometimes we need to iterate the process again and again based on the requirement. So how we will use while loop to iterate the integration specific flow. And yes, in last we will discuss about the scope. With the help of a scope, how we can handle the exception and what's the features of a scope. All these things we are going to learn in this session. So let's begin with that, the integration version. Then we will move to the cloning of the integration and so on. So let me log in first. And in previous session, we created various integration based on passing the request and response payload. So in this integration, we will try to clone that integration. So whenever we are saying that we are going to clone the integration, it means that sometimes we created the integration and we have similar requirement, right? Whatever integration we created, we have to create integration in such a way that the few elements of the integration or the integration we can use. For example, we created integration where in that integration we created integration where we are going to call the app call the BI reports. So yes, for each and every BI report we have the same functionalities, right? So it's not mandatory to go and every time create integration from scratch. So what we will do, we will just create one integration every time. Whenever find the requirement to create the integration to call BI report, we will make a clone of that integration. So making clone of that integration, it means that making a duplicate copy of that integration. I will show you that how we can create clone of that everything here. So just give me 1 minute. Instance is taking. So yes, whenever you will work on the integration, sometimes that integration instance is creating issues. So here you can see I'm not able to create on the click close buttons and all that kind of things we can get. So no need to be worried about that. Just you can like reload or relog in again. Here, just give me 1 minute. Huh? So while creating the integration, if anyone having any issues, yes, you can ask directly, so that there is no need to be worry about that. And if you have any confusion, yes, obviously you can ask. So here you can see we created one integration previously, that XX AP integration with request payload. And I have similar requirement that we have to create integration where we have to pass some values to the integration while executing the integration. It means passing the request payload. So what I will do, I will just make a copy of this integration so that every time I don't need to add the REST endpoint and add the configuration and all. Just whatever mandatory changes will be required for the specific time, we will do the changes only for that specific changes. So here you can see this is the integration previously we created where we added the endpoint to configure the request payload. We added the variable and we added the logger for that. So I will just make a copy of that integration. And when we are going to make a copy of that integration, it means we are going to clone of that integration. So, so what is the restriction? All these things we are going to see here. So here you can see this is the integration and I'm going to just make a clone of this integration. So here for making a clone of the integration, you need to click on this icon here, the task icon. And once you will click here, you can see we have option for cloning. So once you will click on clone, you can see the new integration name and the identifier automatically populated. And if you will see the name, it's added default value, some random values here, right? Because we know that we cannot create integration to more than one integration with the same identifier. That's why they given the random values to that. So making a clone of integration, it means just creating a copy of that integration. And yes, whenever we create the copy of the integration, we cannot pass the identifier again. But yes, we can have the name, duplicate name here. So here, if you will see, we can pass the same name, but we cannot pass the same identifier again. So here, that for changing the identifier, even we can pass the identifier values, different identifier values, and even we can change the name. So if you are aware about that, in the recent 2023 Oracle Integration Certification, IZ0, IZ0104223, in that examination, they asked one question, that the scenario based question. So yes, there was option to, yes, we can create integration by using the same name, but by changing the identifier. That kind of questions were there. So here I will click on clone. Yes, you can provide the package name and also I don't want to provide any details. I will just click on clone. So once we will click on clone, you can see the second integration will be created with the new name, whatever name we provided. You can see previously our integration was 01, but yes, we given the name as 02. So new integration was created with 02. And now once we clone any integration, that integration created and the status is configured. As we know that this integration is already working fine, it means that this is also working fine. Once we will activate, this integration will be executed. But yes, whenever we are going to clone any integration, it means we are going to do some changes. So here I will edit and I will do required changes here. So here you can see once we edit the integration, the same functionalities, whatever we have previously, we have available here. So here in the rest, you can see we have some values. We already configured the request payload. So yes, based on the request payload we added, we have the request payload here. And we don't have response payload because this integration doesn't have response payload. And yes, if you want to add the response payload, again you can come to the resource configuration, and you have to make a takeover. Configure the endpoint to receive this response. So yes, I want to configure this endpoint so that when this integration will be completed, it will return back some response. So next, and again in the response, we have to provide the response payload. So here again, I told you that in last session, while providing the response payload, we can upload the file or we can directly provide the response message here. So here, let me provide the response message, something like that. I want to provide the response like integration status, as it will be success or error, and the result. So as we are going to do the addition operation, so whatever will be the result of addition, that will be listed here. So that kind of things I want to show in the response of that integration. So we are done with the configuration. I will click on OK. So here, if you will see one thing, we don't have any error in the integration. Here you can see we don't have any error because everything is configured and it's working fine. So whenever we will do any changes in the trigger endpoint, each and every time whenever do any changes in the trigger endpoint, we need to configure the tracing variable, because the tracing variable we added, that will be removed. So here you can see once we done, you can see we will have one error. So you can see once we configure the changes in the trigger endpoint, we got again one error. And what error we are getting, if you will see, the error is related to the tracking variable, right? You can see missing the primary business identifier. For resolving that error, again we need to move to the tracking, and here we have to enable any variable. So again, I'm going to add a num1 as a tracking variable, and I will give the name to the variable as track1. Save and close it. Here you can see we have one error, right? One warning. So why we have this warning? If you will see in this REST endpoint, we added the configure for response, for returning the response. But here you can see we have the return icon, we have the return endpoint, but we don't have mapper to return the value. If you remember last session, we discussed whenever we are configuring integration in a such a way that integration is going to return some values, we have to provide the mapper so that we can map the value, what kind of value we are going to return. But here we don't have mapper. Why we don't have mapper? because previously we created integration without response payload. That's why we have only return icon, not the mapper. But yes, this time we edit the integration, edit the trigger endpoint, and we added the functionalities to return the response. So for returning the response, we have the return endpoint, but we don't have mapper. So as I told you, for adding that, we have mapper here. So once you will drag the mapper, it will automatically patch the missing endpoint for the mapper. So for example, here you can see we have everything is configured, but the mapper which we missing, we have only this mapper missing for the start rest. You can see this one. So we have only one mapper missing. So once we will drag this here, it will automatically map with that node. So you can see once we drag this mapper, that mapper automatically will map with the start rest. So here you can see map to start rest. If we have multiple endpoint over there, so at the time when you will drag the mapper, it will ask for which endpoint you are going to add this mapper. But right now we have only one endpoint missing. That's why it's by default taking map to a start rest. And here we will map the value, what kind of value we are going to return back as a result, right? So here instead of log, so previously we have printed the message in log. So I will delete the log here, and here we assign the value. So this assign, we created two variable. You can see var num1 and var num2, and we added the request payload values to here. So again, we will delete these two. We don't require. We directly map. We will directly map here. So here we will directly map the request and the response payload for the addition operation. So here you can see once we deleted previous assign, it's generating error. Why it's generating error? Because in this endpoint, in this assign, we are using previous created variable. But right now we don't have that variable as we deleted that variable. So again, we will edit here. And instead of using that variable as we have already deleted the variable, so instead of using that, I will delete that one. And yes, in the request wrapper only, we have these two variable num1 and num2. So I will drag num1 here, num1 plus num2. Validate and close. Validate and close. Now we have var result which store the addition of that two number, which store the addition of two number, and that addition of number we will map here, map in the response. That's perfectly fine. But here if you will see in previous we added the log message to display the message of that variable, to display the hard-coded values. So same we have the node. So but yes, we have differences between node and logger. With the help of logger, we can display the variable value. We can display the endpoint values. We can display the payload values. But in node, we don't have such options. So if I will drag this node here, so node is something like in laptop we are using a sticky note, right? So that is sticky note is just going to store some information just for informational purpose only. We cannot perform any operation here and all. So that kind of things we have the note that you can consider a sticky note for this integration canvas just for the helping purpose for the developer. So that next developer when they will come and they say that okay we are processing next for that kind of things, we can add the message just for providing the message in the integration canvas only. So here suppose this is a note we added, we will give the note as uh, addition underscore note, and here I will provide the message like now we are going to use assign to create result variable, and we will store relation in that result variable. So just this is for the node purpose only. So here I'm going to create an OK. So once we will click on OK, that node will be added in the net canvas. Here you can see this node, it will not reflect any values. It cannot uh, display the variables value, nothing. Here you can see we added the node. So whenever we will work on the integration, once we will move here, we can see that value of the node. Okay, this is the work, this is the task we are going to perform next. So that kind of things we can implement with the help of node. So now we added, it's time to map the value. So here in the response mapper, we will map the values of the result values. We will expand here. In the response wrapper, we added two, two node as a response wrapper, the integration status and the result. So right now we know that we have everything is fine. So I will just provide hard-coded values as a success here. Success. And here in the result, we will map the variable, var result variable, and validate and close. Save. So here we are done with the integration created. What we have done, we added the REST endpoint. With the help of this endpoint only, we will able to configure the request and response payload. We added the logger to display some message in integration canvas only. We added the assign to create result variable, and that variable is going to store value addition of that two number coming from the request payload. After that, this is a mapper. With the help of this mapper, we are going to map the response of this integration. The response will map the status and the result variable. So now we are going to activate this integration so that we can execute this integration. We are going to configure here. So integration is in activated status. Now we will run this integration. So here in body, you can see we have some default values as we provided in the request payload. So suppose I want to give 100 and 200. And once we will click on test, you can see it's returning back the result as integration status success and the result is 300. Right. So here you can see we are not able to see the node. Whatever node we added, we are not able to see in the instance activity string. Why we are not going to see? Because the node is only for the reference purpose for the developer in the canvas only, integration canvas. When we added the logger, yes, the logger value can be displayed in the activity string, but when we added the nodes, it will not reflect here. It will just only for the notification, or it's only for the making a node in integration canvas. So now here you can see everything is fine. Our integration working perfectly fine. Whatever value we are going to pass, it's making addition of that. Right? It's working perfectly fine. But what if suppose we provided invalid values? So invalid value, it means we provided num1 as a string values that 1x 100 and num2 is 200. So once we will pass that value, we can see we are getting the data as a result as none. It means it's invalid data, right? We cannot perform addition on this number. Right, we cannot perform addition of this string number. So instead of that, even we passes by mistake, user passes instead of numeric values passes that anything string value. So it will not be able to calculate the addition of that. So why, if you will see this is showing none, it means invalid number or the value which is not available. So if you will see the log message of the assigned sum, it will show the same values NaN here. You can see. Right, so how we can solve that one? So in this case, if you will see, we pass the message as success. That should not be the case, right? In case of we should return error. So how we can achieve that one? So we have to do the changes in the integration. So suppose you created this integration and you migrated this integration in the prod instance, prod environment. Now you find that kind of bug and you have to do the changes in integration so that you can resolve that issue. So how you can resolve that issue? Is it not suggested or recommended that you can directly edit this integration and do the changes, because that same integration is already present in the prod environment? So what we will do in this case, we will create different version of this integration, so that whenever we are saying that we need to create different version of the integration, it means that that integration will remain same. We will create a new integration, and that in new integration we will add the changes. And when we are going to create different version, it's allow only to activate one version at a time. So creating a clone of the integration and creating a version of integration, there is slight differences. When we are going to create a clone of that integration, at the time we can activate both integration. So here you can see this was our previous integration and we cloned and created new integration 02, and both integration are in activated status. And if you will see the identifier of the both integration is different. right? Both integration is different. But when we are going to create the clone of the create a version of integration, we can have the same identifier. There is no need to change the identifier. Why we don't need to change the identifier? Right now we are calling this integration directly from the integration instance. But as we created the integration, and we can call this integration from somewhere else. We can call this integration inside one integration, or we can call this integration from any web services, or we can call this integration from VBCS page. So we are going to call the integration not with the name. We are going to call integration with the help of identifier only, because identifier is the one going to identify this is the unique integration. Because we know that whenever we are going to create integration, name can be same for different integration, but yes, identifier cannot be same. And we know that in the case of making different version of that integration, the name will be same, the identifier will be same. So this is the facilities where we are using the version control. So in that case, if suppose we have the two integration with same name, with same identifier, that can create problem like that. So how that the system will identify that which integration we have to call. That's why we have the different version for that. So the latest version, whatever will be there, and the integration, whatever will be activated, that will be by default call. So suppose we are going to create clone of this integration, and it will not allow to make us activate both integration together. Remember, when we are going to clone, we can activate both integration together, but when we are going to create different version, it will not allow to activate both integration together. So when we are saying that we have to create version, so we have three different version. All the three versions are major, minor, and patch. So here you can see in the version sections, we have three different values separated by dot. So the first value is say that major version, second one is the minor, and the last one is the patch. So there is slight differences between both. So once we are changing the major version, it means we are completely changing the logic of the integration. And in such kind, we will create integration in a such way that whenever we require to change completely logic to the integration, we will go for the major. And yes, sometimes we require to change some additional values and additional validation. We will go for the minor. And yes, we have the patch version also for doing some changes, adding the log, and also all this version control we are using to do the changes in the integration. In that integration, which integration is already present over the prod instance. So suppose we created this integration, and this integration is right now not present in the instance, present in the prod environment. So we can directly edit the integration and do the changes here. Right, that is it's easy. But if we added the integration on, we already migrated the integration on the prod environment. We can, but it's not suggested to do the changes directly. That's why we will create different version and we will do the changes. So for creating the version, different version of the integration, we will move to the task, and here you can see we have create a new version. So once we will click on create a new version, here you can see the integration name and the identifier is fixed. We are not able to change this too. While making clone of that integration, we have option to provide the identifier. We have option to provide the name. But at the time of changing the version, we don't have option to change the name and the identifier. What we can change? We can change the description of the integration. We can change the package. We can change the version here. So here if you will see, quickly create a new major, minor, and patch version for the same integration. Current version is 01.000. Version syntax is major first, then minor, and then patch. For more details, you can go for Oracle docs. There are various description about that, the creating the different version for the integration. So yes, right now we are just going to create the minor version. So here I will do the changes. So here you can see we are going to do the changes as 01.0100. Previously we have 01.0000. So now I will click on this. Where is it? Okay, it's closed. Let me open that. There is some network issue. Let me open the integration again so that we can continue. Now, just let me log in again. So here we are going to create the different version of the integration. So for creating the different version of the integration, we need to just go to integration, and here we have create new version. So here we will select a different version. I will just change the minor version only and create versions. Once you will create the different version, you can see we have the same name. And if you will check the identifier, that identifier is last 02, and here you can see we have the same identifier. As at the time of creating the different version, they didn't allow us to change the name or the version. And here you can see we have the one integration activated, and if you will try to activate the second integration, you can see activating integration that at 02 version 1.1 required deactivating the integration version 1.0. It means that we cannot activate both integration at the same time because we have the same identifier for both integration. So if they will activate both integration together, it will create confusion that which integration we need to call. That's why while creating the different version of the integration, we can only activate that integration which is the latest or based on requirement. So this is the first facilities. And even sometimes we require to roll back the changes. So in case of doing the rollback of the changes, when we create the different version, there is no need to do the changes in the integration. What we can do, we can directly deactivate the latest integration, and again we will activate the previous integration, which doesn't have the latest changes. So in this case, we don't need to do any changes in the integration so that we can roll back the previous one. So that's the main use of the creating clone of that work, creating the different version of the integration. So just I am going to deactivate the previous one, and we will do the changes in the latest one, and then we will activate that. So here you can see we have the integration, and here we added the addition operation, right? We added the addition operation, and what we can do here is that we can add the logic to identify if we have non-numeric values. We can non-numeric values, we can do the uh, changes for the status. So here let me check one thing. Like we directly going to add the number here. So first, if I will make it number, as it should generate the exception. So previously, I remember previously when we are going to try to add two different number which having the different like numeric and the alphanumeric values, it's generating exception. So right now it's not generative action. Let me check here. So what I am going to do here is that I am just converting whatever value we are getting as a request payload, converting that value into a string format, right? In number format only, number data type. So just let me validate. Here you can see number num1 plus number num2, close, validate, close, validate, close. And let me activate this integration and let me check, are we getting the same issue? We should get the exception here in case of trying to add invalid number. Again, we are getting the an. So let me copy this one so that I can add the condition over there. Here you can see Once our previous integration is deactivated, we can easily activate our latest integration, which having the latest version. So at a time, we can activate only one in any of the version. So let me activate again.
No, this is the old version. We're running old version.
This one, right? 1.1, right? Here, now let me add the changes. So actually, at the time when we try to add the invalid number, it should return exception in not any n values. But yes, they upgraded the instance and they added the facilities. So okay, no issue. We will add that one, that logic there. I was expecting that it generated exception. So here you can see what we have done. We added the addition operation, and in addition operation, we are getting invalid values that n a n. So what we can do, we can add the condition. So here instead of mapping this one directly, right here you can see we map the success values, right? We map the integration status as success and we map the result. But we know that if we have invalid values, there is no need to add the mapping as a result. So what we can do, that's why we have condition, that we have the if condition. So for adding the if condition, we have switch in Oracle integration. With the help of switch only, we can perform the logical operation, we can add the condition. So what I will do, I will drag this if condition here. So whenever you want to add the logic, and here you can see whenever we added the switch statement, it's open the branch, two different branch. So this is here you can see the condition, and here we have to provide the condition. If that condition will true, control will move from here to this side, else control will move to the otherwise side. Right? So for adding the condition, you need to click on this edit here, and here we need to provide the exception to name to the expression, that the name to the condition. So I am going to check the invalid values. Invalid value, or we can say if NaN, right? So here we will check in which variable we are going to get NaN values. So we are going to get values in the result variables. I will drag this result here, and what condition we want to check? If that result variable will store the value as NaN, that is non invalid values. At the time, just we will click on that validate option. So here, once we will validate, you can see expression is validated. Even we directly added that variable is equals to that value. Instead of that, we can write the expression by clicking here. Once you will click here, you can see the same converted into expression. That if that variable, this variable value is equals to NaN. So that kind of things we can do. Again, once you click here condition mode, it will open you the condition part. And here you can see we have different operations. By default, we have equals. We can change the greater than, equals to, and all that kind of things we can add here. So let me validate here and close. So here you can see we added the condition if we have the invalid number, invalid value as a result. So what we can do, it will move here. So in that case, we want to map. Here you can see this is the mapper, right? In this case, we want to map the response as error. Right. So how we can map the response? So here you can see this is the response, and this response, if you will see, it's outside the condition. So what we can do, we can reposition this one. So I will reposition this mapper inside this otherwise. Otherwise, it means that if we don't have this, if this condition is not true, then control will move this side. So yes, if we don't have that NaN value, it means our value is perfect, fine. Then it will move to the otherwise part and it will map the success. If we have invalid values, then it will move this side. And in this side, we have to map the error. So how we can map it? We will drag this mapper again. So for adding the mapper again, we will move here and we can drag the mapper again. So here you can see as we have only one endpoint for the mapper, that's why it's directly adding the start list. If we have multiple endpoints, it will ask to select the mapper. So here in the response, in the integration status, I will select as error. error, and in the result I will provide the result not create, something like that. You can provide message based on your logic and all. So here you can see we are done with the switch statement where we added the condition. If our sum values is invalid, then we will map it as a error, and if it's the values, it will move to the otherwise part and it will map the mapper as a success. So again, I will move here, go back, I will activate the integration 1.1, this latest version, and now once it will activated, we will run the integration. So here we are providing the correct values, the 50 and 30. So once we provided the correct value, it's moved to the success part and it's giving the result success. And if you will see the activity stream, you can easily find that control move inside the outside otherwise. So here you can see when we have sum as a values, some values not as an AN, it will move to the otherwise part. In otherwise part, we map the values as success. And if we provide the invalid value here, it will move to the, you can see the condition is true, message root through, switch root with condition and AN. And in response, what we get, you can see in the response, we got integration status error and the result not created. Right? So here you can see, if you will see the result here. Here you will see the result here. The sum we got NaN and we added the condition. If our sum assigned value or the where result is NaN, then move to the if statement. Inside that we map the error part. Right? So this is the logic we added. So instead of that, we can add different logic even in our large integration. In large integration, we are using the exception handling part. So we can achieve exception handling by adding the scope over there. So let me show you the how we can add the scope. So again, I'm going to create the different version for that. So for creating the different version, again, I will move to the new version, and here instead of one, I will provide two and create. So here you can see we created a different version, and we for activating this version, we have to deactivate previous version. So let me deactivate the previous one. And now here we have to edit the second one. So here you can see sometimes like whenever we right now we don't have any additional endpoint that we can get the exception. Yes, but yes, if we want, we can add the exception here. So suppose what kind of exception we can add instead of mapping this one, right? We don't want in case of that error, if we want that we can directly generate the exception or we can throw the exception from the integration. So what we will do, we will delete this mapper. In case of delete one, let me delete this mapper from here. And here, if we say that whenever we will get the invalid number, we will generate exception. So how we can check the generate the exception? We have throw new fault. So with the help of throw new fault, we can generate custom exception. Right. So here, what I will do, I will drag this exception here, and here we have to provide the name. So I will just provide the name invalid result exception. Click on create, and here you can see we have to provide here. So here we have to provide the code. So for adding the code, just edit the expression builder, and here you have to provide the code. So suppose I'm going to provide the code as invalid result and validate and close. And here we have to provide the reason. So in the reason we will provide the value, the request payload. Request payload data is not valid. And here in the details, we can provide some more details. We can provide details like one of the value in with below is valid is invalid. So that kind of things we are going to pass message validate and close. Validate and close. So here you can see whenever we will get invalid number, we are just generating the exception. So once we will generate the exception, that exception can be generated manually. Right now we added the custom exception. Even that exception can be the based on the endpoint, based on the logic. So here I will save the integration, close, and I will show you that if we pass invalid number, what kind of error we will get. So here we activated the integration, and once we will run this integration, if we pass the correct values, it will give us the result. You can see it's written as the response payload, but if we pass invalid value, it will not return back the result. So you can see once we pass invalid values, we got the exception. So what exception we got? Whatever exception we find, that exception we got. That can be the runtime exception based on the and different endpoint. So how we can handle that exception, I will show you that. So here you can see where we got the exception. We got the exception when it's root through the value NaN, and in this case we generated, you can see the throw invalid result exception, and once you will click here you can see the same details we added there. So you can see error code invalid result, the reason the request payload data is not valid, and the details one of the value in the request payload is invalid, please check and run again. So that kind of things we got. So in case of that one, right, suppose our requirement, whenever we got the exception, we need to send an email instead of returning back the result, and that kind of things we can achieve. So how we can send an email to user whenever we get that, we will got the exception. For adding the, for handling the exception, we required the exception handling. In Oracle integration, we have different way to handle the exception. So right now you can see if we are getting the exception here in integration, we are not handling exception anywhere, but yes, we can handle the exception as this is the main block of the integration, that is the integration canvas, and we don't have any scope here. So if we don't have any scope, the control will directly move to the global fault if we define. So previously, let me delete the global fault. So here you can see previously we don't have global fault defined. So whenever integration generate any exception, it's directly terminating the integration, and we are not able to perform any operation. But yes, if you want to perform operation in case of exception, we need to handle that exception. For handling the exception, we need to handle add the block. So here you can see right now we don't have any endpoint added here, so that will directly move to the global fault. So we will discuss global fault later, but yes, before going to discuss global fault, let me add one scope. So here you can see, I want that whenever we will generate that exception, I don't want to move control to the global fault. I want to handle in the integration canvas only. So what we can do? So whenever we thought that as a developer, whenever we think that we can get error, that a specific endpoint we will put inside the scope. So what is the scope? So let me explain here. So suppose here, if you will see, we know that in this scope in this point in this area we are going to get the exception, as here we are going to get the exception. So what we will do, that a specific block we will put inside the scope, so that whenever we will get any runtime error in that scope, we can handle the exception in that fault handler of that specific block, that is a specific scope. So for adding the scope, what we need to do is that here we have the scope option. We will drag that scope here. So we'll give the name. We will give the name as result scope created. So here you can see we added the one, but you can see we have to add this condition inside this scope. So as we have done the reposition of this mapper, if we want to reposition this one, we cannot reposition. For reposition, we have some restriction. The looping statement, the conditional statement, we cannot reposition. So for adding the condition here, we have to add this logic inside this, right? For adding that logic, what we will do, again, we need to add this condition. So as we cannot drag this condition here or reposition this conditional part here, but yes, we can reposition the element, we can reposition the endpoint. So before going to reposition, let me add the condition first here. What I will do here, I will again add the switch statement. And friend, remember, whenever we are adding the scope, whatever element we will do inside the scope, whatever operation we will do inside the scope, that will not be available outside this scope. So suppose inside the scope we created one variable, and that variable we want to access outside this scope, it is not possible to access that variable. But yes, before this scope, we have one variable created here, and this variable can be accessible inside this scope. But whatever things we define inside the scope, we cannot access the things outside the scope. So that's the features of the scope. So here we are going to add, as we can access the element which is defined previous before the scope or outside the scope, we can access that all the elements, variable, the payload, all these things inside the scope. So we can access this variable inside the scope here. So again, we have to add the condition on that variable. So here I will just copy this condition, this one, right? So I will copy this one so that we can add the same, as we cannot reposition that one. For adding the condition, again, I will edit here, and here we will provide if we have the invalid value, or we can say right invalid data. Here we have to add the condition. So we can directly add the condition by dragging the variable here and by adding the condition, or we can move to the expression builder, and here we can provide the condition. So here what I will do, I want to provide condition as var result if our var result is equals to this value, right? Here you can see if our var result, even you can use double quotes or we can use single quotes also. So I always prefer use single quotes. Here if our variable having n values, validate, close. In this case, we want to generate the exception, right? So here we have already added to generate the exception. So this can be repositioned. So I will just reposition this one inside this if condition. You can see we are successfully able to reposition. And yes, this mapper again we will reposition here inside that, and we don't require this condition anymore, right? So we can delete the condition. So how we can delete this extra condition? You can see once we will click here, even we can add one more extra condition, or we can directly delete the condition by click on this delete icon. So once you will click here, you can see the design is deleted. So now you can see we have the integration in a such a way that it will take some values as a request payload. Whatever values we will have, it will add, do the addition operation in that. And here we added inside, then after control will move inside the scope, and inside the scope, whenever we check that if our data in the result variable is invalid data, we are generating the exception. So in case of generating the exception, control will generate an error. So if we will not handle this error, our integration will be completed in error. Our integration will be completed in error. So instead of writing the completing the integration in error, we can handle that error. So how we can handle? Let me show you the first here. Let me show you the first again the error what we will get. Here, let me activate this integration. So here in body we are passing the correct value. Once we pass the correct value, it's returning the result as success with the value, and how control is moving, you can see it. In the logger, first we created variable assign sum. In that variable, we have some values. After that message enter inside the scope. You can see this scope we added the result scope. Inside the scope, we added the switch. You can see we added the switch add condition is not going to true as our result doesn't have any n values. It will move to the otherwise block. And in the otherwise block, you can see we map in otherwise block, we map the success and all. And if we pass the invalid values, if we pass the invalid values, it will, instead of moving otherwise, it will move the if condition. So here you can see one will pass, and again you can see we are getting the error. Even we added the scope, after adding the scope also we are getting the error. Why? Because we have not handled error yet. We just added the scope, but we have not handled the error, handled the exception. So how we will handle? Let me show you that. So before that, let us discuss the error we are getting here. So you can see we added the scope message, added the scope control move inside the scope. After that, message route through the invalid data, the condition, and after that we generated the custom throw, you can see the name invalid result exception, and in the exception we added the message. Now we have to, whenever we will generate this exception, we will get this exception. Instead of completing this integration in error, we can handle this exception. So how we can handle this exception? So here you can see, again let me clone this integration to make this version 3rd, and here let me first deactivate the previous one, and here this third one we will edit and do the changes here. So here you can see right now, here we are getting the error, and once we got the error, control is not moving forward so that it can return the integration status as success. So what we need to do, we need to, for that we need to handle the exception. For handling the exception, we added the scope, and for that scope we need to add the handler, the fault handler. So whenever we are saying that we have to handle the exception, it means we have to move to the fault handler for a specific scope. Each and every scope have the fault handler. Fault handler can have the multiple fault handler based on the endpoint. In later on the integration, we will add different endpoint here. So once you will click on the fault handler, you will get various options. So right now we have only default handler. So default handler, it means that in the complete, in the whole scope, anywhere if we will get the error, control will directly move here in the default handler. And here you can see this is the default handler canvas. In the default handler, we can add the log message, logger. I give the name as default handler logger. Here we will provide the message invalid result. We added the log message. Now, our requirement was whenever we got the exception, we have to send an email. For sending the email, we have notification. So with the help of notification, we can send an email from the integration. So what we need to do, whenever we will get exception, control will move to the default handler. And in this default handler, we added the log. Now it's time to send an email. So I will drag this notification here. And here we have to give the name. So default handler notification. And here you can see in the notification area, notification endpoint, we have various options. So the first option is from from this email is going to trigger. So basically that can be configured from the OCI side, or we can use no reply at oracle.com. This is the default we can use. So integration will be triggered from the no reply at oracle.com. And now to whom I need to share. So I will share this email to myself. Can anyone ping their email ID in the chat? I can add their email. Okay, let me check. Here. So whatever email we are going to add here is it same as the email we are adding in the Gmail or the Outlook. So we have to provide the comma and we have to provide the different email. So here we added two email here so that these two user will get an email. But remember, while sending the email from Oracle integration, we don't have option to add the CC and VCC there. We can directly add all the email in two only. Here we have to provide the subject. So here we will provide the subject as invalid result. And in subject, suppose I want to add the integration name. So as I told you when we discuss about the integration metadata, in the integration metadata only we have the integration name. So if you will see the metadata, self metadata, and inside the integration, once you will move, you can see the name. So as I told you that whenever while mapping you get this kind of error, it's blinking and not able to expand, you need to again close this mapper and you need to open the mapper again. So here once we will open the mapper again, here you can see in the self metadata inside the integration, So due to some network issue or the instance issue, we are getting that issue. So again, I will check here. And here you can see the name, identifier, and version. So what we can do here, we will concrete the message CONCAT. I will give the name first as an integration name, and status I will give the name integration, and here I will add another values completed in error. So here it will subject will be like where we have done mistake on cat. Okay, here we have single quotes, right? Value. Yeah, you can see the message will be printed like in the subject, the integration name completed in error. We have wrong E double R R error. Let me validate and close. So now you can see we added the subject. Now we have to add the body of the notification. So here you can see in the body you can write the HTML code. You can write the normal for adding the table, creating the table. We can use the HTML code for the table, or we can use general message. So here we are going to give general message. So hi team, integration is completed in error due to following issue. And now I want to map the reason, error reason here. So we know that from where we can get the error reason, we can get error reason from the exception only. So how we can identify the exception? If you will edit the mapper, I will show you. Here you can see whenever we are getting any error for the fault, here you can see we have fault object. Are you able to see? This is the our fault scope name, the result underscore scope. This is our scope, and this is the fault object defining that the fault or the error code, error details of that scope. So inside the fault, you can see error code, error reason, and the details. The same, all these things we can map here in this message body. But here you can see in the message body, we don't have option to map anything, right? So how we can map here? That's why we have parameters option. So we can create variable. In that variable, we will assign that value, and that variable we can use here. So how we can use? So let me first create three variable. The first variable will be p underscore error code. Let me add another variable p underscore error reason and p underscore error details. So here we created all these three variable, and that three variable we can use here. So how we can use this three variable? So we can use variable here. I will use that error code, and here we have to provide the value of error code. So this is the variable. We will copy this variable, and by using the curly braces we can use here. So once we will provide the p error here, it means at runtime this variable will be replaced. This variable will be replaced with the value of this variable. So right now we don't have map any values. I will show you the how we can map. So let me first add the message error reason, and again I will add the variable error details, and here we will map this all this variable, right? So here in the runtime it will display message hi team, integration is completed in error due to following issue, and we can see the display all this thing. So now it's time to map the values. So here you can see in the error code, you can see this is the mappers. Once you will click the edit here, you will get the exception builder. In expression builder, we can provide the value. So this is the error code, p error code. So error code from where we will get, I show you that this is the fault. Inside the fault, we will get error code. So I will drag this error code here, validate and close. And after that, you can see we have the error reason. Again, we will do same. We will expand here. So here we have inside that, yes, we have reason. I will drag this reason here, close, close. And in last, we have the details. So again, we will edit here, and we will map the details here. You can see this is the detail. So now details close. Even we can add the one who called the integration or who executed the integration. So I will add integration ran by. I will give the name here. So I will create one more variable. So I'm using p underscore p defined as a parameter, and here I will give the name as run by. And what value we have to assign? We have to assign the value. So you know that in metadata we are getting all the details. So you can see in the self in the runtime. Once you will expand the runtime, here you can see instance ID and invoked by. So I can drag this invoked by here, validate and close. So we are done with the message. Here we have to provide this variable here. And here you can see this is the attachment. If we want to send file over email, we can send the attachment. So right now in integration, we don't have any file. So we cannot send the file. So we will send that file later. So just validate and close. Even we will see how we can send the file over email and all these things. So yeah, right now you can see what will happen. First, we will get the value. We will get the value. That value will be added here. If that value is perfect and that value doesn't have any error, it will directly return result as a success message. And suppose if we have invalid result, so it will come here, it will generate an error. That error will be handled in the default handler. In the default handler, we added the log. After that log, we added the notification so that the same error details we can send over email. And after that, integration will be completed. You can see, right? So just here, we are going to save and close. So this 1.3, I'm going to activate. So you can see the integration is activated now. Now we have to run this integration. So test, and in body you can see we are providing correct value. Once we will click on test, integration will be completed and it will given the result. And once we will provide the invalid value, and once we will click on the test, you can see we are not getting any response as an error. It means that we successfully handle the error. Even we can return back the response also. So next we will see how we can return back response in case of error also. But you can see right now we don't have error here. In the response, we are not getting error because we handle the error in integration. So in the activity stream, you can see that we found the error here, and that error we handle in the fault handler. In the fault handler, we added the log message, and after the log message, we added the notification. So right now error got the activity stream got removed. So again, I will for checking the activity stream, I need to go to monitor, integration, and the tracking. And here you can see this is our latest integration. So here, if you will click here, you can see the all the details. So if you will see in the logger, what we added in the logger, we added invalid result and we added the notification. So in notification, what kind of value we send? If you will see, click on the details, you can see email. This is the email we send from where to from no reply to this email. Subject, what was the subject? Integration name, access AP invoice, AP integration with request payload. This is the integration name. Zero completed in error. And in the body we pass hi team integration is completed in error due to following issue, error code, invalid result, error reason, the integration whatever we map, right? And after that one you can see integration completed. In we move to the next, like you can see message existed a scope result, and move to the mapping. And in mapping we are not going to map anything, that's why we didn't get any response, right? So even if you will see the email, let me show you the, we got an email, and the email with the same details. You can see this is the integration name completed in error. This is the default code. Whenever we are going to change the integration, we generating. And here you can see that message, all the message, and to whom the send email sent. You can see this two email, my email, and this is the another email we added. And you can see this is all the details we added there. So even we can provide this information in the HTML format so that we can add the table and all. So we will learn later on. So here in the integration, we will do one more changes. So right now, when we completing the integration, we are not getting the response. So even if in that case, if we want to return back the response as error, so we can achieve that one also. Here you can see when we are running the integration here. In case of in case of success values, we are getting message as success, but in case of invalid, we are not getting error. We should return as of actual scenarios, we should return as integration status as error and the result as zero, negative value, or anything like we can whatever we want to add. That should be written here. So right now it's not returning. So how we can achieve? So here if you will see where we pass the invalid value when we will run, we are not getting any values as a response. So why we are not getting any value as a response? Let me show you that. So if I am going to edit this integration 1.3, I just don't want to make a clone. So here I will edit the integration. In next 10 minutes, we are going to close the session. So just wait for next minute also. So here you can see in the case of success, right? If we have correct value, we are mapping here. You can see map start rest. We map here the response. That's why with the help of this mapper only this return endpoint is going to return the values. But in case of error, when we handle the exception, we don't have any mapper. That's why we are not able to get any mapper there, any response there. So for adding the mapper, again, we will do the same. We can drag this mapper here. So as we have only one mapper endpoint empty with the mapper, that's why it directly taking default name. So here in the mapper, integration status, we will map the result as error. Error. And in the result, I want to in result, I want to display the message, whatever error reason we have. So while defining the fault, we added the reason, right? So I will map this reason here, right? So validate here, friend. If you will see, you can ask that we added the variable, the parameters variable here, right? We added the parameters variable here, but we are not able to access or we are not able to get the parameters variable while mapping, right? There can be the questions. Why? Because whatever variable we added inside this endpoint, this notification, the scope of that variable is that inside this notification only. The variable we added here, the parameters variable, we cannot use or we cannot access outside this scope, right? That's why we are not able to see the variable over there. So here we map successfully. We will move back and click on save, close, and we will activate this integration. And here we will click on test. So here if we are passing the invalid values, once we will click on the test, again user will get the email, whatever email we added, and that after that error we will also got the response. So here you can say integration status error and the result. So instead of result we have the error code, error reason, whatever we added, the request payload data is not valid. So friend, that kind of things you can implement in the integration so that we can achieve desired result, desired operation. Anyone having any queries and want to ask anything related to that, the integration and the activity we performed today? Yes, you are welcome to ask your questions. We are left with the while loop. So yes, in next session we will discuss that while loop also. Anyone having any questions, or we can wrap up for today? Thank you so much for joining the session. We are going to close the session for the today. Thank you so much. We will join tomorrow at same time. So tomorrow is Saturday, so we will skip that tomorrow. We will again connect on Sunday. And yes, you can do the practice. And in this two Sunday and Saturday and Sunday, if you have any other queries, you can ask in the group. You can directly connect with me and ask your queries if you have any. Thank you so much again.